Okay, with Arie Forma, The Shepherd is a short film played at the Romance and Relationships Film Festival. This is a film from Central University of Central Florida, right? You went to go with the school there?
Yes, this was my senior capstone film.
How did it go? Did you graduate?
I did successfully with honors, and I'm very grateful for that.
Where is the University of Central Florida?
In Central Florida, in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, is it in Orlando? That's not really central. That's more north, right?
No,
Northwest.
man, that's Central Florida.
Is it really central?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Geographically, I guess. Okay. And you're from Boca Raton?
Yeah, I'm from Boca Raton. That's where I currently reside.
Is that like a tourist industry, a tourist area, or
More the older, richer, sometimes Caucasian side of Florida.
I'm assuming a lot of Canadians are down there too, right?
I assume so. Mainly what you'll find is rich, Jewish, and old, which is a whole bunch of my family.
So there's a lot of Canadians basically.
Yeah.
But they still vote for what's his name, right? I can't even say his name, but it's turned into a red state, basically what I'm saying.
Florida has stopped being a purple state since 2016. So to answer your question without saying his name, yes.
Okay, so tell me about this capstone project of yours. You were the writer of the film. Do you remember when you first kind of came up with this idea for this film, this project?
Yeah, so the concept of interfaith marriage has always been kind of prevalent in my life. I'm a Jew, I'm a proud Jew, and my whole family is Jewish, but my sister was dating a non-Jew, and the family's reaction was always very apprehensive. We still love all of each other, but it was still the idea that it was apprehensive was very shocking. Even saying that I wouldn't only want to marry a Jewish woman was very shocking. And this isn't painting my family bad. It's just, the religious values. But weirdly enough, this idea came because I was so stuck on making a film about Stockholm syndrome, and we had to submit um a final proposal for our scripts. And at 11:58, I was like, let me just do the Jewish one. I think that would be good. And I wrote it up. And my teacher, he's like, pretty good. He's like, we're all with that. So
Yeah.
it was born.
So that's like so basically it's good to have a deadline. Basically, that's what I learned from that story.
Yes, when you're about like zero sleep in and amounts of assignments in, it really helps to have a deadline.
So is your sister still dating the Gentile or
No,
okay.
yeah.
That's a good thing or whatever, right? I guess.
Next question.
Next question. All right. So basically, that's sort of the seed of the but this is not just a like you said, a Jewish story. This is a cultural story. This is a very universal story in terms of like many different cultures, many different religion, have that concept where they want to basically keep it going, right? They want to make sure that that interfaith doesn't mix in, I guess, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I know saying that making this for an assignment was the main idea, but this has
Yeah.
always been something percolating in my mind because I'm friends with a lot of close friends of mine who are more religious and from different ethnicities and
Mhm.
religions like Muslim, Catholic, a lot of Jews. And when I mention that, they're like, whoa, okay. Like that's you're
Yeah.
kind of dealing with something that instantly made it, then this is kind of the reaction so many people got was, oh, why are you gonna make that? And that was the first clue, like, okay, I'm on to something here. And the the reasoning how that reaction would happen where you would pull away further proved why this story was needing to be told and in the right way. Because it shouldn't just be a reaction of, oh, rather than, oh, okay. You know what I mean?
It's a generational story too, right? Where like the key story is the father-son relationship, and it's also not the case like all basically, but it's also like you're American, right? So your parents perhaps born somewhere else, they don't have their idealization, their like cultural kind of upbringing is different. So what is a big deal to them is not so much a big deal to the next generation because you're born in a different kind of culture.
Exactly. I completely agree. That, and you said the words perfectly, generational gap. If you're not like, to quote one of my mentors, Rich Gurla, he literally reacted to all my peers going, "This is crap. This would never happen." He said, "You need to sit down. Like you don't know. You're way too young enough to realize like how it really has to be when you're at that age or in this generational type of issues." And that's true. Like, and to further prove how the generation supports it is I showed it to an uncle of mine. We're Cuban Venezuelan Jews. So we
Okay.
had all the Sephardic line, and he cried because of how that type of act influenced and traumatized his generation, and how this just like you said, this is a story that completely goes by how these seeds are planted, how they affect you, and what you can do to get out of it.
Yeah, 100%. But at the same time, like you're like this is like you're like your culture wants to keep it going, right? Like it's like like basically meaning that it's not just about like finding the love of your life, it's about keeping the Jewish culture going, right? Like not that like you're the dangerous species, right? Was there 15 million in the world? It's just that,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, to go off of that, Jews are a very, very large minority
Yeah,
in the world. Very, like that's so weird to say, large minority. Like we're very small and we've been persecuted and killed
yeah, exactly.
and had to be wiped out since the beginning of time, current time. So the goal, and this is playing devil's advocate to the writer of The Shepherd, is they tried to kill us. We can't allow that to happen. We need to regroup.
Mhm.
Just like a big line in the film is, this is how we preserve our roots, because without that, then the lineage dies off. What the shepherd is trying to tell is that it's okay to accept others for who they are,
Mhm.
and it's okay to welcome others into their lives while understanding the point of view that comes from the Jewish religion. It's not supposed to say this side is wrong, this side is right, because that's where this whole divide happens, where you're like, it's whether not just if you're Jewish, non-Jewish, if you're Democrat, Republican, if you're gay, straight, whatever you are. It's either you're wrong, I'm right, or I'm right, you're wrong. And that is where the split happens instead of accepting the other point of view and accepting others for who they are.
I've said this a few times, maybe on the podcast, but it's about where this time that we're living in is missing nuance, right? Like it's all about black, like you said, it's all about black and white. It's all about like what side are you on, right? Like it's not about discussion. It's not about like what you just described, right? So yeah, so there's a lot going on in this film.
Yes, and I'm very proud of the weight that it holds because I didn't want to just make a film. That's why it was so hard and to come up with this idea because the best ideas really come late. Steven Spielberg said that because, it takes a long time to really come up with the best ones. And I didn't want to make a film just to make a film, even though it's a senior film. I didn't want to just tell a story. Yeah, it's fine. I needed to tell something, and Stockholm Syndrome was one that I was thinking about, but it just wasn't clicking. I needed to have that weight to it that actually had its meaning. And the second I came up with the idea, and I was perfect. And then pointing the lens to the perspective of the father, I
Yeah.
knew I struck gold.
So speaking of that, where did you find your because he's the key to your film, the dad. Where did you find the actor?
Well, I'm very blessed to have Alan Whitehead in my life and to have met him. A mutual friend at the time said she saw him in a play and said, if you need somebody, you should go check him out. And I was so headstrong on finding it. I was like, I can find him on my own. And towards like about a week before callbacks, I still didn't have anyone that could hit him. So I found his email. I begged an acting teacher who knew him, please give me his information. And he gave me his number, his email. I wrote to him. He wrote back an hour later, I'll be there. And the second I walked in, Not just the look, I'm like, okay, he's good. But the second he started talking, I was like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? And I love the guy. I love him so much. He's become a good friend. And I'm so blessed to have him.
And then what about the rest of the cast? Where did you find the rest of the cast?
So the supporting actress Komal Patel, I was friends with before. Am still friends with. She worked as an intimacy coordinator on my first film that I believe we interviewed for last time.
Yeah.
Um, and she was a late addition because my original lead actress dropped out. And friend of mine suggested her. I called her, hey, do you want to read for this? She knew both the actors. Said sure. The second she read, you're hired. I just needed to see how she would read. The guy who played the son also a good friend of mine, and I knew right away I wanted to work with him again for my last film, Danny Navarez. And one of the hardest ones to find was Mike Brodsky to play the actor. I mean, to play the brother, and through a little bit of searching, I found him on a casting website, and we had to go through Zoom a lot because he was out of town. But
Mhm.
just the sweetest guy, and I needed somebody who could really click with Alan because Alan was such a powerhouse and who could really
Yeah.
bring that intensity to the film. And I was going through a few, but the second I found him, I'm like, he's 100%.
Is it a
And
coincidence that the son looks an awfully lot like you? He looks like you.
like me,
Yeah. Nobody's
a
ever
little
said that to
bit
you
like
before?
the hair and the mustache, you could
Yeah.
say so.
The glasses. Yeah.
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 Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest hurdle I had with that was he didn't really look like the dad, but then you see in the beginning of the film, I'm like I had them improv. I'm like, talk about how he met his mom in Puerto Rico, because that's where he's from. Boom, problem solved.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
well,
know.
yeah, like people can leap, I guess, to the conclusion, but no, but did you? But I'm sure someone has told you that before that you guys kind of look awfully alike.
And the same thing in my last film. They said the lead actor looked just like me as well, and that was because he was playing me. But I feel like in every film, it's a little bit autobiographical. You have to have some of yourself in it, and I guess I look like it's a coincidence that he looks like me, but he's more of speaking a lot of things that I would say. He like a lot of the lines were, except from the, I guess you would say antagonistic point of view of the older father from another generation, are lines that I have thought about and I have said and that I've heard in my life and that I've heard other family members and other people say. So the essence of me will always be in there, and I guess it looks like me as well.
So we you referenced before that we did talk about your other film through rose-colored lenses. That's
Yeah.
it's also on our app as well. So you're if you so those are the two films you've made to date, or you made any other films since then?
Those are the two I've made to date. I've worked on a few and I've produced a few as well. And obviously I'm currently working on some stuff right now.
And so that was also done at the school at the school.
Yeah, Through Rose-Colored Lenses was my first film I ever made and ever has been on, and that was a learning experience for sure. It was a really trial and error. Then I gaffed and I gripped and I produced a bunch of
Okay.
other films of friends of mine. But then The Shepherd was the actual first film I actually felt I sunk into my director, like into the director I know I can be. And that is because I was so stressed out that I need to take Advil because I was like having a migraine because of how much things were going wrong and things were going like sideways. And it
Yeah.
really felt like I was actually on set.
Well, that's making a film, right? So, but
Yep. And I had to learn right, getting thrown right into the sharks, and a lot of lessons, a lot of mistakes, and but a lot of good came out of it. So.
well, this is not an easy film to make because it's 14 minutes, but you got a lot of actors, like you got a lot of scenes, and so it's people talking. It's just people talking in rooms, right? Like I've been from its generic, basic sense, and you got to make a visual story, like a cinematic story about this thematically driven, filled with
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of complexity, right? So
Yeah,
not an easy film to
92
make.
shots.
What's that?
he had 92 shots for a short film, which was insane to think
Yeah.
about, but it's how much complexity was needed. Like you said it perfectly with telling a story through just the visual means, which is people talking, not much action going on.
Mhm.
And the best example I can give is one of my favorite shots of the entire film is this doorway shot of where we're like literally opening a door into the past. Because we booked an Airbnb that kind of had some use, but then we realized we were really in trouble because a lot of things weren't going right. And I went up with my DP Santiago, who is my brother. I love him to death, and he really is my right hand man whenever I make films. And we saw the doorway, and we're like, what if we just put a dolly camera on a dolly and we just push in on the main scene? And we're like, perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking. And that became one of the best scenes in the entire film.
So yeah, and then so you the director of photography, your editor, like your composer, like did you work with them in your previous film, or like what's your relation? They're all, I'm assuming they're all part of the school.
Except the composer. So I'll start with her, Analia Lentini. She is a composer I met who currently lives in Argentina. And we actually won Best Original Score in a different film festival, Indie Short Fest, for this film. She is just an amazing, amazing composer who composed for both films just exactly what was sitting in my mind. And having that relationship was just it's a dream to have for any director who wants to be. You want somebody that just immediately gets you. And then I'll go Santiago next. I met him in class, and he became a DP on my first film after I had to let one of my old DPs go through complex issues. Won't get into that, but he was a friend of mine, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna trust you with this. So it's a big thing, and I was more on top of him in the first one, but in the second one we both like I'm not even exaggerating. I know people kind of like hype up their stuff. He and I both knew what we wanted without even thinking it. It was that perfect chemistry needed. And he would set up a shot. Perfect. That's what I want. I would let him be and focus on the actors and everything else while
Yeah.
he set it up. I looked at the monitor. Great. Exactly. If not, I said, okay, up a little bit. Great. And then my editor was one of my editors of my last film and a good friend of mine that I met on a MFA project when I first started in UCF.
Yeah.
And she's an amazing editor. I love Hope Miller. She lets me also take on the role of guiding her into the edit of what I'm searching for. I let her take the reins. If I don't like it, I'll switch it, but she collaborates instead of it just being this is my way or the highway. Like we collaborate to make it what we want. And in the end, it it took a little bit of tugging to get in those last few months, which is,
Mhm.
if you're in school, it's a lot. But we came up with something towards the end, which is I think is the massive tearjerker in the entire film.
So did you have any issues working with your actor Alan Whitehead? Because he's an older actor. You're working on the student project. Did he kind of like pull his weight? I'm just curious about like because it's kind of a daunting, because he's the key to your film. He's fantastic in it, and I was wondering if he came up with any ideas himself or how that relationship was.
Well, he didn't, I wouldn't say he pulled his weight. Like when I first met him, right away I got the idea of he loves to act. He's the sweetest guy I've ever met. And yet, he's in like such a fierce role at times. But if he felt a line he wasn't able to say naturally, I let him bend it a little bit. Like one of the lines was, that was before I found out you were an arsonist in my family tree. And he said, that's before I found out you were an arsonist setting fire to our family tree. And he took a little bit of a twist to it. I didn't really like, I know a director has to really take the reins on the actors, but I let them play with the role. If I didn't like it, I would bring them in, and he didn't have any issue with that. Like for instance, and not so much of a spoiler, but one of the big lines is where he goes, "Too bad she's not Jewish," right to her, right, like literally right in front of her in the table. Like, oh
Yeah.
crap. The original way he was saying it was very outgoing and laughing. And I told him I don't like that. I need you to pull it down. I need you to be very blunt with it. And the second he did it, perfect. And he had no issue with that, which is why it was so hard to find the perfect actor, because so many of them were not following my direction or taking it into a direction they wanted to. But because I've lived this culture, I am in this culture, and I know how this needs to be. I need to, like I told him, you got to listen to me on this. And thank God he listened to me, because he, beast. And he trusted himself, which is most important.
So I'm
The
curious,
confidence he
you
had in
go ahead.
no, no, I was just gonna say, and the confidence he has was just astounding, because he was the fuel of this entire film. And yeah,
He definitely was. Well, because his ideology is the conflict, right? So,
exactly.
right?
His Jewishness is his power that he's losing his grip on, which creates some pretty deep characters.
But he's not like that's the irony, right? He's not losing. There's nothing to lose, but basically that. Well, because I was going to bring up because like the idea came from because your sister was dating a non-Jew, but basically, but you changed the character in the film to the male because I guess the stakes are a little bit higher, right? Because I don't even know if this is a deal, but it's a matriarchal religion. So if she like her kids are going to be Jewish, right? But I guess with you, if it's a male, it's is it different or I don't know if I'm curious about that. Why you switch the
Well, well,
roles?
back to back to the first quick. The Jewishness is a huge factor. Just to add on to that quick, the Jewishness is a huge factor in Jewish males, because leading into this part of it, actually, if the wife isn't Jewish, the kids aren't Jewish. So the lineage cut off
That's
right
what I
there.
mean. So basically, with your sister, so say she ends up marrying that guy,
Yeah.
it's not. I guess
That
is it this? It's not as big of a deal. I'm assuming.
it's not as big of a deal, but it's not looked upon right, because it's still creating a different branch in the tree. We like to, we're the chosen ones. We like to be in our secular group. But when branches kind of start to grow apart, then that's where the issues arise. With the male marrying a non-Jew, the branch is completely severed.
Yeah.
The main thing about the characters is they
What if
don't
she
realize that
converts?
if she converts, she has to be 100% Orthodox, or else she's not truly Jewish. That's Jewish law.
But that's not. But laws change. Aren't the laws changing though? I don't know. I'm just
They've been around since biblical times, and
okay.
that's how Jewish law is set in stone. With how, like, I'm not religious by any means. I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell, but like, I used to have shoulder length hair when I first talked to you. Like, I'm not religious by any means. That big sheep is a Buddhist elephant. Like, I'm very open to it.
Yeah.
But I know the religion from my family. I have a bunch of rabbis in my
Yeah.
family. We are that's the way of the land for them, and I respect it. But I like to look at things with a wider lens.
Yeah. But it's more. It's almost like a more of a culture than a religion, right? So that I don't know if that's a fair statement to make. Where like
It's both, in a sense,
yeah
because we're the Jewish, like, my lineage and who I am as a person, even though I'm American, and I'm also half Latino from my father's side. When you look at my actual blood and
yeah
genealogy, I'm Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jew. So we're a people, but we also follow the Jewish religion. That means the practices that we as the Jewish people follow.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I recently just did a podcast with someone. She made a film. She lives in Brooklyn, Orthodox Jew, and they have arranged marriages. And
Mhm.
she's in an arranged marriage herself, like in real life, and her brothers or sisters are in arranged marriages. She made a film about that, right? Where like, and it was more about like, kind of like we're moving, especially the female perspective, right? We're moving into a new generation, but at the same time, we're still honoring the faith, like the faith, and also that kind of I didn't like I was kind of blown away, but it was a so basically, but this is but then that's a different type of like person who's like they're very like I call it hardcore hardcore religion or like not as hardcore religion, but basically, but that's like
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
my take on that is like you're always going to have different sides of the, I guess you would nowadays say political spectrum of, more progressive, more conservative.
Yeah,
I think it really is down to just, I don't agree with arranged marriages. I want to fall in love with who I want to fall in love with, but the idea of arranged marriages and why it's a thing is sticking to the core values
yeah,
of their lives, of the standards that need to be of marriage, raising children, and again, like the restart, like marry you join and you repopulate and you spread your values. That's the whole meaning of the conservative, you know, of conservatives in a sense. And the more progressive, that's why I'm a dead center moderate, is because I agree with some of the more progressive values too of love who you love. You if you want to be with this person, why shouldn't you be?
mhm,
But you also have to look at both sides. That's why, there's so much division in this world and in this country, and because people only side one way rather than, okay, let's look at both pictures. And you'll see
yeah.
that, it's a big issue going on with college campuses and with, you know, all over the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't have to get into that basically because I know it's it's a thing, right? So basically,
We can talk about whatever you want, brother. We can talk about whatever you want.
but so okay, so basically I guess what I'm saying is that just like it's just like we're still progressive. There's still like an evolution happening and their individuality and the religion. Like in your film, the film ends with your dad with the dad. I call it your dad. The dad basically having a conversation at like a quote unquote dinner table restaurant, and basically kind of growing as a human being, right? Like he's trying to evolve, right? But still
Exactly.
sticking with his ideology, right? So
Exactly. That's
that's a hard
perfectly put.
mix, right? So yeah. But I like the ending. I thought
It's
it was yeah.
Thank you. It's that ending was very much needed, especially the embrace of the daughter-in-law grabbing him in a hug. That's
Mhm.
not allowed in Jewish, like in Jewish tradition. And men aren't allowed to hug women that aren't their family or their daughter.
Well, that's crazy.
Uh,
Come on. Am I allowed to say that? That's fucking crazy. But okay.
no, the explanation is very, you can say whatever you want, but the explanation, I'm not like, I'll get into you off of live recording, but
Yeah.
uh it's more of, it's a very strict conservative manner. That's what it is. I hug whoever I want. I love
Yeah,
on whoever.
yeah.
I'm Latino also, so I embrace that as much as
Yeah.
I can. You can kind of tell by the shirt. But it's it's really challenging the viewpoints that are drilled into people's heads, because that's the biggest thing. He's still sticking to what he believes. Like he's still a Jew. He's not denouncing his Judaism because he is now hugging this woman, but he is at least acknowledging her. I can't control your life, but I still acknowledge you are my daughter-in-law now. And opening your heart just a little bit, because that's where the cutoff happens. It's like almost catch 22, if you would say. Like you're worried about the branch and lineage ending, so you just end it.
Mhm.
So it's like, oh, okay, we're not gonna do it, so we'll just cut it off. I don't know if that's catch 22,
Yeah.
but that's what this is needed for. And that's why no matter what BS reaction I got from school, because I got some reactions, and no matter like whatever people said, this film needed to be made because of how important the topic is.
All right, man. So we talked to you last, I think it was last September about your it was a lot, it was yeah, it was around no, actually it was last August, so almost a year. So
Yeah.
basically, so we're talking to you like 11 months a year later. And now what I'm asking you is that am I going to talk to you a year from now? Are you making another film?
Oh, 100%. Right now, I'm actually wanting to develop the short film of The Shepherd into a feature.
Yeah,
I
I kind of see that, but yeah, go ahead.
I have so much more to tell in this film, and I have so much more that can be explored because in 14 minutes, how much can you really squeeze into that? You know, it's really, really tight.
Plus,
But
you want
I'm
to hear the
working on
mom, the female, the mom, the perspective. That's just my 2 cents.
and actually seeing the side of Aaliyah, the daughter, the not the daughter, the lead actress, you know, the not the Shiksa, if you'll say,
Yeah.
because it's she says in the line, she says in the movie, sorry, I lost half my family because I chose not to live their lives. Whole backstory right there, you know, you could actually delve or well, you could dive into what is actually, you know, the juice of the story, the juice
Mhm.
that's missing. You have the main essence, but you need the meat on the bones to really tell, you know, how this happens, how it's manifested and how it can be solved. Three
Yeah.
acts right there.
Well, I think that we're in interesting times right now, and I think you told slice of that, of the times that we're in right now, and it would make a great feature. It's just that we actually need features like this because it's like I'm sounding like a broken record cliche, but they don't make these films anymore, right? In the feature realm, and I think that there is an audience for them, right? That I really think there is, and it's like because it's just you're just telling a family story with nuance and that has a universal theme to it. So I think you're onto something.
Every every single person that is having a heartache and who is rioting right now and going through so much crap, ever not even just through international, but through politics, I feel needs to see this. And that sounds very boastful of me, but it's also being very prideful in what I made because I feel the story matters. And I agree with you that if more people who may not want to see it see this film, I feel like it could really open people's hearts. And you know, there's just way too much division and way too much hatred in this world and especially in this country right now that it really just we need a change. And what better way to make the change than be the change?
Through storytelling. All right, man. Well, like I said, let's talk next year when you make your next film. All
Absolutely.
right. Thank you.